Hello everyone, welcome to another video. I'm Rivit, this is one of my builds. This episode is gonna be a bit more centered around decorating the area. As you can maybe notice here, I did some work on this general area. Previous episode I didn't add that station, so I did that between episodes. And it was because I was noticing that there was some traffic issues, and that was because everybody was using the cars, all the people that lived in that new area that I built last episode. And so I decided to give them an option, because they were even using their cars to get to the station. So I thought maybe by using some pedals to connect to a station over there, I might be able to relieve some of the traffic issues. And yeah, it pretty much worked like that. I did some I just wanted to use the pedals there, and I just did a little bit of a decoration around it, but it wasn't too much work actually. And yeah, I didn't record it, not because I didn't want to show it or whatever. It's just that I just started building it because I saw that something needed to get fixed, and I started building, and pretty much when I was done building it, I thought, I might have wanted to show that, I don't know. Maybe it's not that interesting, I don't know. It's whatever. So here I am using some filler pieces for industrial areas, and normally when you just play vanilla, you don't really need those filler pieces, but I'm using the Industrial Revolution mod, which is it's a mod that was designed to make your industrial areas look more realistic, and they did it by increasing the amount of area most industrial buildings take up. And they use that extra area to make the decorations around the buildings more realistic. For instance, you can see some trucks standing next to the buildings there, and there's some extra parking areas here and there. And I'm not really sure at what they all did, or it was actually just one guy who initially made it. But it's a nice mod, it adds some realism to your industry. The big downside I've found is that the industry now is a bit unrealistic in terms of... I'm not sure if it's unrealistic, but it's a bit harder to get enough jobs by using industry. But that might be realistic, I don't know, because some of those buildings still have like 90 people working there, which still seems like a lot to me, but I don't know. I also know of some industrial buildings where you could have like hundreds of people working, but those are pretty rare, and they tend to be a lot larger than the things you would see in a game like this. I don't know. So anyways, I'm doing some decorations here. I thought, let's use some ryegrass there, because, well, you could just leave it blank, but I thought that looked a bit boring, I guess. Not really boring, but it just didn't really have a realistic feel to it, the blank grassness. I don't know, it looks too much like it was recently mowed grass, and I wanted it to look a bit more rugged, like just a bit more unkept, I guess. So I thought these ryegrass things might help with that, to make it have a bit of an overgrown look. And then I added some taller plants here and there, just to break the monotony a bit, because it was all looking a bit like just one big field of grass. And I didn't really look for references when preparing this, because I wasn't really planning on doing all this. I was planning on doing some decorations, but I wasn't really planning to use grass or whatever like this. It just came to mind, and I thought I'd just try it and show what it looks like if you try it like this. I think, yeah, I think it looks pretty nice in the end. I think it has a decent variation, though this area might be a bit monotonous right now, so I decided to add some more flower kind of things here and there, and yeah, to make that transition maybe a bit more smooth. Maybe I do that later, but yeah, I think you can make some pretty random looking areas like that, and I think it did add a nice touch to this general area. And here's some plants. I don't know, in my mind I thought they would look a bit different, but then I put them down and they looked a bit too dark, but I didn't want to bulldoze the whole thing and start all over again, so I just left them there. Maybe, yeah, I had something in mind that was a bit more green, I guess, but yeah, whatever. So in this area I decided to try and use some rocks just to, I don't know, add some accents. And you can see me putting down a whole lot of rocks here, and yeah, most of those rocks are gonna end up being hidden by the plants that I put around them. So, and the side effect of the rocks is that it spaces out the grass that you put down a bit more, and that lets you, I don't know, I think it lets you get a bit more variation in the general look of this bit. So as you can see now, a lot of the rocks are already hidden, so it's just a bit of accents here and there. Some areas have a few rocks. I don't know, I think I like the result of that. And here I'm looking at this big triangle, and I thought, let's just do some grass here. And I didn't go too thorough on the grass because I knew I wanted to do a bit more than just grass, so I decided to add a couple of different flowers. At first I went with the wildflowers, and here I'm using the 2 yellow flowers to add a bit more color there. And now I'm looking at this area near the commercial here, and I thought, let's just use some pine trees to I don't know, create a bit of a barrier between the commercial and the real. I think a lot of these decorations that I do don't really look super realistic. For instance, this random bit of pine forest, it's a bit random, and it doesn't really transition into a larger pine forest, although I could make it do that in the future. But right now it looks a bit, yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's places where the city hall just decides to put some trees of a certain kind somewhere, and you might just get something that looks like that. I don't know. Might be a bit too random, but I think it's alright. I'm not really trying to make the most realistic city here, because as you can see, I'm using a bunch of canals that go up and down hills and whatever, so yeah, I'm trying to make things look real enough so that you can suspend your disbelief, I guess, and just, yeah, I don't know, I'm trying to make things pretty. As you can see here, by the way, I've installed a rail mod that changes the textures of the rails. I think I'll link it in the description, but it was a bit tricky to install. I don't know. It looks very nice though, so I do recommend you using it. I haven't tested it with whether it looks as good with viaducts, so I can't guarantee that it's the best rail mod, but I think it looks nice and it works well. I also installed a mod for the trains themselves. I now have a train that is a pretty classical looking electric train, and I chose to use that one because it looks a lot like one of the trains my dad used to have in his like little train set thingy, and I kind of wanted to find a rail mod that, I don't know, I think I just wanted a rail mod that doesn't look like a bunch of American trains, because yeah, I don't have experience with American trains, but whenever I see them, I think they look pretty boring. I don't know, they just don't look very interesting to me. And here I'm looking at this bit of it's not really a cross intersection, it's like two T intersections that you could interpret as a cross intersection, and I didn't know how to exactly make that look cool, but I thought those two bends with the thingies running off of them, I think that looks kind of interesting. And yeah, so I'm using these fence pieces. They are I don't know the creator's name by heart, but they are part of a rural pasture project that somebody did like a bunch of years ago, I guess. Everything is old in this game, I guess. Well, there's still some new stuff being made, like the network add-on mod additions and stuff like that, so it's nice that even though it's a very old game, there's still people working on it with passion and dedication. Yeah, so I derped out one of the fences, and I ended up losing 2 squares of farming space, and I decided to hide that with some trees. I mean, if you make mistakes, it's fine. And I did install some filler pieces for farms where you can put down certain crops to hide mistakes like that as well, but I didn't really want to bother with that. I just thought, let's just use some trees to hide it. So yeah, I'm using these fences, and I really like the look of these fences, but it's a bit, it's not really annoying, but it's just a bit unhandy, or yeah, it makes them a bit harder to use, that you have to be in this water type, underground type mode. Sometimes you just can't really tell which way a piece is facing, or whether things fit together very nicely. And I'm not sure if they always go into this underground mode, or whether something was different this time, because I seem to remember that they didn't always do that, but I don't know. Yeah, so you can make a whole bunch of different intersections with these fences. There's a lot of puzzle pieces for them, and I'm just doing the fences first, and then I'm planning on doing some foliage to I don't know, it's in part to decorate this area, but it's also in part to hide the empty places that the fences leave. So you could just not use fences and just plant these farms directly next to each other, but I kinda like the use of fences. It gives a bit of an extra level of realism, and having some lines of trees and stuff bordering a farm seems realistic to me, since I do think trees have the certain benefits. In general, farms do need bees and insects and stuff to help pollinate the flowers. But at the other hand, of course, there's also insects that can harm the plants, so not sure how that works out. But I thought it ended up looking pretty nice, and at some parts I just used some lower plants or some flowers, as you can see here, and I tried to make a bit of a variation with the darker blue and the lighter blue flowers. And here I'm just using the grass again to to make this area a bit more consistent with the area I decorated earlier. Now if you do decorations like this, I'm playing on a large map, and I think if you want to do heavy decorations, then you should not play on large maps like this, though you should do whatever you want, of course, but for the computer that I have, the PC that I have, it ends up pretty demanding. It lowers the frame rate quite a bit, and here I saw this farm didn't have power, and that was because my power plant was getting old, so I decided to delete it. And here you can see what I meant by frame rate. Just deleting a power plant actually destroyed my frames, so I got a bit scared and decided to save, and I forgot to cut out this bit of saving, but whatever, you can skip ahead, I guess, if you really. It wasn't that long, because it still sped up 3 times, so it's fine. So I'm pretty much done with decorating those farms. I decorated a whole bunch near this rail, and I thought about what I said last episode, that I maybe wanted to add some farms near this area so people could just walk to their farming jobs, and I decided to do that. And here I'm trying to look for because there's a pretty steep height difference between these, and I tend to like using rails for making smooth slopes, but the preview was showing me some weird stuff that I didn't like, so I just experimented a bit and then ended up with that, and then just clicking it a couple times can smooth out some of the steeper the steeper height changes, so you can end up with some pretty smooth roads or streets like that. So I made this little bit of an area, and I had in mind that I wanted some residential over there near the schools, because that makes more sense to me, at least. In my experience, a school is generally near small shops and or housing areas, because the kids going to the school come from the residential areas, but the parents picking up their kids from school might find it handy that there's shops nearby, so that they can multitask and do their groceries while they're picking up their kids. I don't know. I decided to focus more on the residential part of what would be handy. And here I already noticed this before, I think, but I thought, this traffic issue is pretty bad here, and I'm just looking, why aren't they just using the trains to go over there? And I think they just find the walk a bit too daunting. And there's a lot of people also leaving town for work, and in part that is because it's a pretty short route for them to take the train to the edge of the city. And when Sims look for jobs, they count jobs in the neighboring city as being right. They don't count the travel distance on the other city, so that ends up incentivizing them a lot to go to a neighboring city when there's where there's a reasonably close option to do so. So, but anyways, I decided that I needed more jobs in this city, and I decided to make a large industrial area here. Yeah, so I talked about the industry before, about how this Industrial Revolution mod it's a very nice mod. It makes the industrial areas look pretty interesting, I think, and with the filler parts, because normally you have a whole bunch of 1x1 buildings that would fill in the 1x1 empty bits that now stay between the buildings. But when you use the fillers, you can just mitigate it like that, and there's like 4 or 5 different fillers per wealth level, so you can, if you have like an industrial dirty industry area, the pavement tends to be of a darker color, so you can use a different filler piece for that, so it matches the pavement. So there's yeah, I don't know, I think the person who made those really did think about it a lot and put a lot of effort in perfecting it. So it's a very nice mod. But yeah, it does make it so that you have to put some extra work in decorating your industrial areas, probably. And here I decided to move this road over a block so I could use these diagonal fillers, because I didn't like the zigzag of the pavement there, and on the other side there's still zigzag, but I'm assuming that that's gonna get mitigated by the industries growing there, and if there's no industries gonna be growing there, because it's a diagonal, so it's gonna have some empty bits probably, and then I'll just use some other fillers to fill that in to make it all a bit more uniform. So yeah, I do think these diagonals make it all look a bit nicer next to the rails, and they also make sense because there's still people working in those places, so all that noise from the rails might still be annoying, even though you're in an industrial job. There's still offices in these buildings as well, and yeah, not every industrial job has to be super noisy, so kind of makes sense to help them reduce the traffic noise from the rails a bit. And as you can see here, there's a whole bunch of empty bits already where I will be placing some decorations right about now. And I'm leaving these 2x2s empty because I do know that there's a bunch of 2x2 buildings that can grow, and yeah, I'm assuming that they might end up growing there. So that's that for the industrial development of this area. There's a lot of people going by train, but also by car, which just increases the problems with the traffic I have over there. I'm not sure how to fix that without turning that street into an avenue or something like that. I could do subway stuff, and yeah, I could do something like a subway network, but I don't really, because I don't think this town is big enough to warrant a subway network. It's like 70,000 people, which is decent, but it's still a pretty small town. So I don't think small towns like that would really have a subway network. That's more for towns of like 150,000 people and more, I think. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't really studied subway networks or the amount of people a town would have before they start considering those. And I decided to just add some commercial here because I did add a whole bunch of, at least in terms of the amount of area it took, that was a pretty large amount of industry, but the amount of jobs was just over like 1,000 or 2,000, and I needed like 14,000 jobs to to satisfy the amount of people living in this city. So, and here I decided to just use some of these mountain theme pack shops, and okay, one of them developed into a small office, and here you can see what it looks like now after all this work. This is the industrial area. You can see the little passenger station there. Okay, I'm already done with that shot. And in this shot you can see near the triangle that I decorated, so you just can see how this neighborhood looks. And next to the rail, to the left top side, you can see those small shops that look like market stalls. I think they're part of the SimPack agricultural mod. I'm not sure. I think they were part of an expansion that I installed for that. And here is just a little bit of an overlook, and you can see the train coming in. I'll link the mod to that train as I'll link to the download for that train, as well as the rail override thing, which will be, because it's like on a Google Drive and you have to find there's 2 files, but I'll describe it a bit in the description if you want to use those rails. And here's the farms that I decorated. I think the farms look pretty nice. I think they look alright. And now for a bit of an overview of the city. And that's pretty much it for this episode. Thank you all for watching, and I'd like to see you again. Goodbye.